Northern Nigeria is simply known as Arewa. It is an area covering the current 19 northern states of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, plus the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. The area occupies 719,435 square kilometers, or 79% of Nigeria's landmass. Nonetheless, Arewa is, to say the least, declining in taking full advantages of its potential within the federated units of the nation. Alhaji Falalu Bello, formerly of Unity Bank PLC, had one time opined that Nigeria is one nation with four economies, each growing at its own pace: Southwest economy, Southeast plus Delta economy, Northern economy, and South-South minus Delta economy. The Northern economy, he noted, has its economy totally grounded. You may ask why, and probably that is why the Conference of the Northern States Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, COSIMA, decided to commission this video documentary. The idea is to capture and highlight the general socio-economic situation of the northern region, with particular emphasis on the decay, degeneration, and failures in different aspects. According to ancient legend, Bayajidda, the son of King of Baghdad in present-day Iraq, came to Daura of Katsina State and slew the fetish snake known as Sarki that was preventing people of Daura to fetch water at wish from this Kusub well. As a consequence of his heroic act, Bayajidda married the reigning queen of Daura. Their son, Bawo, begot the first rulers of the 7 Hausa states, who were the origins of the Hausa race. With an offshoot of 7 more states, the formation of Arewa took shape long before the amalgamation of northern and southern protectorates to constitute Nigeria. Thus, the composition of Arewa had been multiracial, multi-religious, and multi-ethnic. With deep sense of pride, Arewa had a common bond, and Jonathan Ishaku explains.
The question of belonging, or the question of identity, relates to how an individual perceives himself vis-a-vis the society. As I grew up in Maiduguri, where I spent all my childhood years, and in fact part of my adolescence, I felt that I belonged to that society. And this is a society that is predominantly Muslim, but as a Christian, as a young boy, I fitted in so well that I never had a consciousness that I was outside that society. And because I felt an insider, I was part of the North. I was a Northerner. Because all my friends, some were Muslims, some were Christians. And as I said in that article, I even shook hands with the shehu of the time. And we played mostly in the foreground of the palace, as children, Muslims and Christians, and we shared a lot of things in common. During Christmas, we go around with our friends, saying happy Barka de Sallah, Barka de Christmas, and all that. And we join our Muslim friends, during Muslim festivals, Barka de Sallah. We enjoyed our friendship. We entered their houses, they entered our houses. Sometimes they come and meet me in Sunday school, and if they are impatient, they will enter. And sometimes the teacher will call them to remove their caps, but they will go ahead and remove their caps and remove their shoes too, because that's how they enter their mosque. And we also were taught to respect Muslim sensibilities. When we entered mosque, we remove our shoes. Even the one by the sides, road sides, when we are going to pay, we are going to ease ourselves, we squat, because that's how it is done. You don't stand and, urinate like, in some other cultures. And so, to all intents and purposes, we consider ourselves, as belonging to that Muslim Kanuri society, to the larger northern society. And in fact, indeed, by the time that I went to secondary school, I went to university in Ibadan, I was called Gambari. I was treated as a Hausa man, and of course, because I speak Hausa, and I also dress with my kaftan. You know, sometimes when I went to church there, the first time I went to church, I said, "What am I coming to do here?" I said, "No, but I'm a Christian." They say, but you're a northerner." Yes. Well, you see that I don't. Yes, I was a northerner, but I was a Christian, and I felt belonging.
One can easily refer to the golden era of Arewa during the reign of its only premier, the late Sir Ahmad Bello Sardona of Sokoto. He was the first premier of Northern Region, and his legacy is aptly captured at the Arewa House in Kaduna. His official residence has been turned into a museum displaying his works and times. We went beyond Arewa House to capture some of legacies left behind by Sir Ahmad Bello, who is still fondly remembered despite being murdered during the Nigeria's first military coup of 15th January 1966. This edifice, Northern Nigeria Development Corporation, was established in 1963. This was the Premier's office and is serving the purpose of the Kaduna State government. This university, named after him, is celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2012. However, Kaduna Textiles Limited is ruined to this level. About 4,000 staffs were relieved of their positions and are now left in the cold hands of labor market. The irony of Sardaona's legacy was not in his material acquisition. In fact, these are his private possessions on display at the museum: a driver's license, party membership card, sword, wristwatch, and his wardrobe. Who are consumer?
The main objective of the Conference of Northern State Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, which is the objective of its individual member chambers, is essentially to serve as an organ of the organized private sector, to render advisory services to government, to constitute a pressure group to ensure that policy directions are right, and where there are wrong policies, advise government on their negative effects and consequences, and to also advise on the right way that government should channel directions on policy dialogue, and also to largely project and protect the interests of its members. The conference itself comprises of 19 northern states and the FCT, and if you like, as we speak today, it is the largest assemblage of representatives of the organized private sector working together towards ensuring that the right environment is created for business and general economic development to prosper.
Let us now begin our assessment of the current situation by observing these core facts about the northern economy. The region controls or owns less than 3% of Nigerian banking assets. It owns or controls less than 2% of insurance assets. Arewa owns and controls less than 10% of the nation's industrial assets. Arewa landmass and solid mineral resources are underexploited. Education is the key to success of any given society. Yet, every indices used to judge the education sector in northern Nigeria indicates backwardness. Educational infrastructure are generally poor. Teachers' quality is also poor. Enrollment figures in primary, secondary and tertiary levels of northern Nigerian peoples is very low. Foreign exchange being expanded on northern leaders' sons and daughters abroad is rising up, which indicates they have no faith in the system and there is no hope for the sector. Recent figures of 15 million Almajiri in northern Nigeria also indicate that a large chunk of our youth will be disfranchised from mainstream Nigeria because the system offers them no opportunities. These, indeed, and many other challenges in the education sector are begging for interventions. Advocacy Nigeria is a non-governmental organization intervening in northern Nigeria. Based on the extensive work of Advocacy Nigeria in Arewa, we asked the executive director to share with us their own assessment of the healthcare delivery system in northern Nigeria.
The healthcare delivery system in northern Nigeria is terrible. It is unacceptable and it is unbelievable that we have communities where there are no functioning healthcare system. We have some communities where primary healthcare centers are there, built, but they don't function. They are not equipped and they are not staffed. We also have local governments who to date refuse to employ the right caliber of staff to man their healthcare facilities. The highest they will pay for is a community health extension worker. So the problems we have in northern Nigeria, the poor health indicators, particularly maternal mortality, it is one of the highest in the world. Child mortality is one of the highest in the world. This is depressing. If you look at national statistics, on the average, we have brought down the maternal mortality rate to 545 per 100,000 live births. But if you look at northern Nigeria on its own, you will find that the rates are very high. It still goes to about 1,700 for some areas like the northeast and northwest. That is 1,500, 1,700 for every 100,000 live births. This is very depressing. And what are the reasons? Poverty. People can't afford to pay health care services, so we are campaigning for free maternal health care. The northern governors have all responded and they said, yes, we are going to offer free maternal health care. But how free? Are they giving comprehensive maternal health care? That means from antenatal to delivery to postnatal care. So that is the issue. They have done advocacy and they've accepted that we have a problem that puts us behind other developed countries. So they are doing their best. They've accepted free maternal health care. But what is the level of implementation? How much of the budget? We have to put our mouths where we have to put our money where our mouth is.
In 1975, through World Bank assistance, Nigeria introduced enclaved agricultural development programs ADPs in Gusau, Gombe, and Funtua. These are staff quarters of the Funtua project. Although statewide ADPs have been established across the country, agricultural productivity of Nigeria has neither guaranteed its food security nor increased its global market share. Indeed, the agricultural sector has the largest potential to diversify the northern economy and that of Nigeria because it can create jobs, secure food supply, lower inflation, and expand foreign exchange earnings, thus directly mitigating poverty. Alhaji Saidu Dattijo Adhama has captured what are to be the two northern Nigerian critical commodities to be included in Nigeria's agricultural transformation agenda.
The two critical commodities are cotton and groundnut. One is groundnut. Groundnut is a hunger-fighting commodity. Cotton is poverty-fighting commodity. Each one has other line-up of other commodities with similarity. We conducted small study that confirms to us that groundnut oil if produced in Nigeria, will cost about 230 naira to 350 naira per liter. And in Kano, where we made the study, we assume there is 1 million houses in Kano, that each one of them will give them 1 liter per day per house, to the tune of 1 million liters consumption of cooking oil daily, which translates to about 200 million naira. Of the way we peg it to 200 round figure for analysis sake. 200 million naira consumption of cooking oil per day in Kano times 30 days translates to 6 billion naira. Most of the cooking oil we use now in Nigeria is imported. We can produce groundnut, we can produce groundnut oil, we can get sludge from it as a byproduct that will be a raw material for making soap. We can have the cake that will produce, we can produce animal feed, poultry feed, fish feed, and many other things. As a follow-up, now that the federal government is having its agricultural transformation agenda, if we agree that groundnut and cotton are poverty-fighting commodities and hunger-fighting commodities respectively, then they should be put in the list of the transformation agenda, because this will help to remove hunger, to provide food in the country, to provide job opportunity in the country. Because like I said, in the cotton sector, cotton now, together with textile and garment, is now a complete sector that the government is even interested now. We now regard that sector as a poverty-fighting sector. We had cotton as a poverty-fighting commodity. Now we regard cotton, textile, garment as a sector, and it is a poverty-fighting sector.
On his part, the chairman, Kasima Board of Trustees, emphasizes the need for...
Well, the biggest problem is the businessman is doing his own plan, the government is doing its own, and there is no a kind of discussions between the governments and the businessmen for us to identify what will be the industrial strategy for the country, so that the businessman will understand it and the government will work towards achieving that. For instance, if you go to all these developed countries, you see that the Chamber of Commerce, the business community, is always in touch with the governments in developing and working on industrial policy for a country. No industry will survive without government. The government has to come in to bring proper facilities for cost savings. For instance, the government has to make the statistics, the research to discover what can we do best in the world. When the government identify what we do best, Obasanjo has started with the cassava, but they let it die. When we identify what we can do best, then we invest in it and we synthesize our businessmen to come into that businesses with the help of government and work towards it. For instance, we sell sesame seed today, but there is no serious research on sesame seed development and production. Sometimes the farmers produce the sesame seeds and lose money. We can do more. When there is good research and development, you can produce sesame seed at cheap possible cost, and that will help develop industries.
The threat to environment in Arewa is reaching an alarming proportion. This is one of the largest firewood markets located at Mariri in the outskirts of Kano municipality. One can only imagine the number of trees being felled without corresponding number to replace them.
Akan kamar wayarwa mutane kai, saboda gwamnati kan tsara ranar da aka tsayar da shi na cewa ana shuka itace ranar. Akwai wani tsari da kungiyar kuke take da shi na wayarwa mutane kai kan cewa ya kamata a ce duk wanda ya dasa icen nan ya kamata ya...
Muna yi, duk wanda dai itace mutum ko sare ita ya kamata ya samu dan karami ya dasa a wurin. Ita so duk ana yin wannan. Duk ana wayarwa da mutane kai. Ko can din muka je muna wayar musu da kai.
Although there are the yearly tree planting campaigns across Arewa, One-time Commissioner of Agriculture in Katsina State has this advice to offer.
Well, there are two approaches I think that were adopted. One was to create a buffer zone by planting a wall of trees across the 6 states, which I think has failed. Then the other one is because most of the problem that we associate with desertification is our culture of tree felling, our use of firewood as a source of energy. So the other thing is to encourage people to produce their own woodlots. Of course, people now have to produce their own woodlot because there are no more forests for them to source for firewood from again. But the real danger is that we must have a good buffer zone that is created, a good wall that is created across the 6 states, and to have, of course, to have them in layers, because that was the initial idea, to have a buffer wall in layers across the 6 states. What we do is we have a tree planting campaign, because it's now more political than facing the real issue, is to have a tree planting campaign here tomorrow and next year have it another place. So the danger is any tree planting campaign, even if you plant 1 million trees, if you don't maintain it, of course you get only success rate of 10 to 20%. But if you continue buffering it off, how many survived, how many died, and try to buffer off every time, every year, you rather than starting a new campaign. Maybe if you have a good buffer once, it may lead to having another buffer. So I think we need to revisit the issue, because substance, with changes in administration, I think the essence and the policies are completely eroded. That's why I look more to, like, let's look at up to maybe a non-governmental organization to lead the way, or a different organization that will lead the way, rather than relying on government. Government have their own set objectives, but let's look at an objective of trying to stop desertification, using the communities and the communities within the border states or within the threatened areas. I think that approach may be better than the system that we adopt now.
Desertification is one major environmental issue confronting the 11 northern states at an alarming stage. In essence, why is Arewa desert prone?
Desertification is a big crisis when we look at the situation of the greenery as the brownish landscape is actually getting into Nigeria. In Nigeria, the key threat of desertification is one, dealing with the climate, the climatic indices, most especially the rainfall and temperature. As we are getting the two, rainfall is getting lower, temperature is getting higher. Yes, we are getting this. These are very eminent in Nigeria. And secondly, we also could see desertification as we are pushing it. The key factor today, we refer to it as the climate change, which people feel the climate change is man-induced, meaning human beings are actually causing it. As we are cutting down trees, we are eating into the river channels. We are taking all the lower and upper terraces of rivers. So we are getting drier and dry environment, putting all the dams on our major rivers. We have lots of them, most especially in this part of the country. We have lots of the dams. So all of these are ways by which man intervene with the nature, and we are getting the problem of desertification because dryness is coming in and our brownish environment is taking over the green environment.
The issue of security and social unrest has greatly resulted in undermining the economic prosperity of northern economy. Apart from recording over 1,400 deaths by September 2012, the region was confronted with numerous challenges in October 2012 alone. For example, 25 lives were lost from an attack by unknown gunmen in Mubi of Adamawa State. Along the old airport road in Mina, Niger State, unknown gunmen shot dead an assistant superintendent of police. About 30 people were reported killed in Maiduguri of Borno State, while Zaria and Kaduna State witnessed bomb blasts, assassinations, and arrests over links with terrorist activities. All these are indices that all is not well with Arewa. The earlier we tackle these issues, the better. Plateau State is one of the states battling with ethno-religious conflicts. In an attempt to bring the issue up, we asked Dul Johnson to express an opinion on the issue.
It is a sad thing looking at the development that has taken place within the geographical area that we call Arewa. It takes one back to one's early days. As a young man from secondary school through the university, what I experienced as a person within this geopolitical region and what has become of it over the years is a very sad thing. I mean, I think back to those days, how we used to be. I remember my days in the secondary school, Kuru, when all Islamic events, for instance, were celebrated by everybody. When it is fasting time, I would be looking forward to that breaking of the fast early in the morning, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., when I will share the kose and akamu with those who fast and stuff like that. When I went to the university, the same thing. I mean, we have lived like brothers. The best of my friends have been people from Kano, people from Sokoto, people from Katsina, all sorts of places. All of a sudden, believe me, I do not have that number of friends anymore. And it is very, very saddening. How did this come about? I mean, we are all witnesses to it. Not too long ago, we started fighting one another. And these, I think, are issues that could have been resolved amicably. There is no doubt about it. We have all sorts of names that we give the problems that we have faced, but we all know that somehow there is some kind of manipulation, you know, from the background. And is it that we do not know, or is it that the laws of this country cannot dig down, dig deep down to the sources, the main causes of these problems and try to resolve them? Is it that there are people who are above the law that cannot be called to order? I cannot understand. But the point is, obviously, the masses have lived together as very, very good friends, very, very good neighbors. We, the ordinary people, don't have these problems. Okay, let's face it. When this crisis begins, these people who tell us that these are political problems, these are economic problems, do we see them there? We see the masses who have been used. We see the masses who are pushed to fight against each other. For goodness sake, I think that we can always go back. I think there is a need, not even that we can go back. Someone ought to do something about the situation so that we can go back to how we were before. Otherwise, of course, our children will have no future. In this country, it's not going to be an Arewa thing. It's going to be a national thing. It's a national problem. And I think there's a need to solve it.
The scale of decay, degeneration, and massive failures in northern Nigeria must not lead us to despair. Rather, we should be challenged both individually and collectively to do things better. Nigerians are known to be resilient. We must, therefore, appreciate that Arewa has rays of hope. Arewa must stand up to aspire and achieve greatness. We must remember people like the Prime Minister, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. His tomb in Bauchi will provide the basis upon which we should not allow their efforts, our founding fathers, to be in vain.
The indices to look at in this actually, one, to look at our natural resources and to determine, to harness them in such a way that we can go into the global market. And secondly, we also need to change our attitudes. That's fundamental to all this. Thirdly, we need to also move in such a way that we get ourselves educated. Education is the first thing, I think, is what would lead us to understand all the key indices that we have talked about, how to harness our natural resources that we've talked about. So the foundation is actually education. And education, we need to know it at all levels. It's not for us to say that, okay, we only need the Western education alone and we negate. No, that is not what I mean. But Western education is so fundamental. We need to know it to the highest level.
Beginning with regaining peaceful coexistence within different ethnic nationalities and religious beliefs, what reactions do we get?
At what point did you denounce your citizenship of the North and why?
Well, I really didn't deny it, but I felt that I was badly treated and probably I did not belong. And so the search for a new identity began. I think the very first time, because actually, as I grew up, I wanted to be a journalist. That was my consuming ambition. And in Maiduguri, I think my vendor knows one, Alaji Adamu knows that even in primary school I was reading newspapers, New Nigeria particularly. So after my graduation, and after even my master's, because I did it immediately, I wanted to go to New Nigeria. So that was the model of journalism that I knew. And the first interview they called, I was all dressed up for the interview. I left Jos, arrived early. Immediately I entered the premises. For one unknown reason, they stopped me. Now it was then that it dawned on me that something probably was wrong. By the time, after a lot of pleading, I was allowed to get into the waiting room. Then I discovered what was wrong with me. I was fully suited in a coat, in a suit. And I saw people looking at me funny way. Apparently, I was in the wrong dress. Even our friends from the east were better clad, you know, in flowing babariga. And therefore, I knew that something was wrong. Eventually, they said, no, I should go and take my money and go back to Jos. You know, Jos is cold. So that's the way we dress in those days. So now I knew that there was an identity problem. That was my first inkling. Eventually, I tried the second time. This time, I was also accepted. I wrote the exam, and from my friends, it was okay. But I just didn't know why that result was never released so that was the first time I started feeling a sense of discrimination. And you know, there was a lot of political famine at that time because during Shagari time, even though I didn't go with the dominant political thinking in Plateau at that time, I was PRP. In fact, indeed, my first son is named after Aminu Kano, you know. So, but then later on, you know, people say, look, this is not Maiduguri, this is Jos. And well, you know, and as we continue to witness this sort of discrimination in the North, now it's done on us to look elsewhere for an identity. I think that's the evolution of the awakening of the Middle Belt consciousness.
Perhaps the biggest ray of hope for Arewa lies in agriculture, water and solid minerals. Agriculture's potential to grow the northern economy is unquestionable. Once Arewa can develop the strategy to deploy its available land mass for increased agricultural use, shifting to higher value crops, and increasing its global market share, overall growth and development will occur. So Arewa must gear up to grow the local market with indigenous farm produce while targeting export opportunities. The Chad Basin Development Authority is a good example where opportunities abound.
The total of the three phases is 67,000 hectares. 18 plus 4, which is 22,000 hectares, are fully developed. The remaining are still under development. If you combine that with the lake shores, you'll be talking about over 100 hectares of land available for irrigation.
Goronyo Dam in Sokoto State is a key structure for development of water resources within the Rima Valley Irrigation Project, which covers Goronyo, Argungu and Birnin Kebbi down to the river mouth of Yelwan Yauri. It has a lake area of 200 kilometers square, capable of irrigating several hectares for Fadama use. Chala Goj Dam in Kano State is designed to irrigate 65,000 hectares, provide flood and erosion control, develop fisheries and livestock production, to recharge aquifers in the basin area for successful boreholes and Fadama projects, as well as serve the water needs of Kano, Jigawa, Yobe and Borno states. The Hadeja Valley Irrigation Project in Jigawa State is another multi-purpose project. Already 1,979 hectares of land had been opened up, representing 52% completion of Phase 1, Stage 1. Dadunkwa Dam in Gombe State is to provide water, 40 kilowatts hydroelectric power, 350 hectares of irrigation, and domestic water supply to Gombe Township and its environs. Already, Savannah Integrated Fruit is using outgrowers along Phase 2 and 3 of the project.